Warning: the following video talks about scenes of graphic stupidity committed by four lifelong friends who compete to embarrass each other.
This will be a day long remembered. Now I am the master.
Welcome to another episode of Legends and Theories, and welcome to my review of Impractical Jokers. And this is going to be done a little differently, since this doesn't really have storylines or arcs to go over. This is challenges and punishments. And I'm going to try and do it all in one video, like I did with Adventure Time. So, we'll see how that goes. I'm doing this a few days in advance, unlike that one. And finally, I'm going to be a little more conventional. I'm going to be talking mainly about the stuff that I love and the challenges and some of the punishments, because there's just so many challenges in this. It's so hard to remember, and I don't really remember which ones happened to which individual episodes. And I can, mainly get the punishments. Some of them are not as memorable, and there's 9 seasons of this. It's a really good show. And now that I've kind of well set up, let's get into it. And starting with season 1, you don't have too many strong punishments here, and that's mainly because they're just at the beginning, and they don't have a high budget. The show is, I think the punishments are best explained by, well, the first punishment where Sal has to pick up dog poop. And with that, he has like a glove on and everything. And this is a very, basic season where they're definitely, at the point where they don't have as much, but it's still very entertaining. You get Joe, Sal, Q, and Murr, and it's just so fun to see them and to see how they react with each other and interact. It's really fun to do, and they do a really good job with it. You definitely can tell how good of friends they are. And things definitely do, begin to pick up a little. And really, all of them looking at them, the punishment that failed the most this season was out of TP, where Joe shamelessly goes and asks for more toilet paper. They thought it'd be a great punishment for him, but they learned quickly he had no shame in that, and that punishment specifically failed. And it's just one of the very rare ones where the punishment wasn't really successful. Although they do give Joe and the other Jokers their own sense of humiliation, with Joe being a belly dancer. I think that Sal loses like the first 3 or 4 episodes, and that is, well, it's pretty funny and sets a precedent for the rest of the series where Sal is losing a lot. And yeah, and then I think the most interesting and unique punishment this season was Supercuts, where we have a four-way tie, the only four-way tie that will ever happen in the show's history, since, as I mentioned before, Joe Gatto sadly has left the show. Although he may go back, at the present he is not part of the show, and although a three-way punishment would be, in essence, what a four-way punishment would be, they have not had a four-way punishment since the end of season 1. And that four-way punishment didn't even, well, we didn't even see the effects of it, since it was, a little bit of at the end of the season, and they got crazy haircuts. But moving to season 2, things jump up in intensity right at the beginning, where we have Stell having to dig through elephant poop this time, and he doesn't have a glove on, and yeah, they immediately jump up there with some of the stuff we have. Another great one with strip high five, and that's a pretty brutal punishment towards Joe and Murr, which Joe ultimately wins. And to think of Joe when he's in multi people punishments, where it's no competition, he seems to do really well in them, with him avoiding being naked in strip high five, and then later on with Q falls, he's the one who doesn't jump off, and with the pinata episode, he also avoids not being the guy who gets turned into a pinata. Yeah, I think that's just a kind of interesting to see. So it's a really good punishment, and probably one of the first truly great and crazy ones. Oh, the elephant poop one is pretty crazy. I think this is the first one where they really just went all out. And like it's one of the ones we have a really funny one where Q has to explain to his parents the birds and the bees. And if you know what that is, you know what it is. If you don't, I'm not going to explain it because I want to keep this pretty family friendly. And yeah, that's a pretty adult topic. And then moving to some other ones. There are some decent ones I think around here is where we have Murr's lie detector test, which is really funny. And then we have one where I think Style has to fake being a psychic. Yeah, it's that one. There's one where he has to fake being a psychic, and then one where he has to be the subject of a psychic reading, and that is really good. And looking at some other ones, we have some ones that they're pretty decent ones. I don't remember exactly what the punishments are. And then there's one where Sal is put in a cage with cats, and this isn't the first cat-related punishment for him. Another funny one's when Sal has to dig through a garbage barge for his phone, and he has a pretty great reaction to it. Human pinata, that's an amazing punishment where Murr gets the living daylights beat out of him as he's turned into a human pinata. And looking at some of the other ones, we go to the Alliance, and that's Q Falls. And this ends up with Murr and Cell both having to jump off of a cliff because they went and messed with Q and sabotaged him. Joe managed to get out of this punishment since he's the one who won it. And it was really interesting. And this was actually the first three-way punishment, with the first four-way one and only one, as I said, being in season 1. I pretty like it was a pretty funny joke. What's a punishment I fully loved was the one where Rosie O'Donnell shows up, and it just really felt like they wanted to do this because they wanted Rosie O'Donnell to be with Q and dressed up as Q, which is it was pretty funny. But besides that, it was a okay punishment. And there's a kind of funny one where Joe has to wear a matching costume to his dog and have someone say he's cuter, and until he did that, he just keep going out in costumes. And yeah, that was a really funny punishment. And looking at the rest of the punishments, there's nothing more this season. The challenges are always fun. But yeah, honestly, I don't really remember the individual challenges, and they're just really fun to have. The best part of this is definitely the punishment, and that's why I'm mainly talking about those. But if any challenges do pop into my mind, I will talk about them, but it's a lot harder to remember them because you have 9 seasons worth of challenges, and there's between 2 to 4 challenges per episode. So yeah, that's just a lot of challenges to remember. So that's main problem with it. And then, well, let's move to season 3, where we have a really funny one where we get the skydiving ferret. And that's episode Look Out Below, where we have an amazing punishment for Murr, where he's forced to skydive. And this is one of the episodes that truly shows how good of friends they are because most people would probably not be friends after this punishment, since they exploited their friends' fear of heights and made them skydive. But it definitely shows how good of friends they are and how they're able to take jokes. Murr's definitely planning revenge, and I think he may have only taken it out on Sal so far. So it's a really good way to mess with a friend, and I really like how they are such good friends. Looking at some of the ones, we have a great one with Field of Screams, where we have one of many Sal's haunted house punishments. And with all of these, we just get to see how easy it is to scare Sal and why he's the easiest Joker to punish. While on the other hand, we have Joe, who is my personal favorite, and he was really hard to punish since with stuff like in season one's out of toilet paper, he would just go straight up and take it, and they don't really know what he will do and won't do. And that's what makes Joe so interesting, in my opinion, and why he's my favorite of the Jokers. But I think that's probably better suited for another video. And to take a look at some of the other ones. And look at these. We don't have too many crazy ones. There's also a few bonus footage episodes around here. But then there's a fun one where Joe dresses up as, we'll just say, a sailor going to what he thinks is a bachelorette party, but it's actually a World War II veteran party. I believe it was World War II. I might have been a general soldier one, but I can't remember exactly. And then we have Joker's Playhouse, which is a great one to mess with Murr. This one does have one of the challenges I do remember. I don't remember specifically which ones, but I think this is the introduction of the Behind the Glass challenge, where a bunch of crazy stuff is happening behind the glass, and they have to try and not to laugh. And that's a great challenge. At the end of the episode, they go and destroy Murr's apartment, which is both funny and not the last time they do it. And then there's one where Q actually has to go through a simulation of what it's like to give birth, and yeah, it's a pretty funny one. And there's one where Murray actually has to get a bunch of piercings, and that is another really funny one. And then continuing on, there's a series of pretty decent punishments, and then we get to a funny and I think the first impromptu punishment where Mur loses a tooth, although I think it's not really counted. I think the first one's really counted as one where Sal has the water guns, and with this one, Mur loses a tooth, and they force him to take a selfie of it since he refused to do the challenge and he lost the episode. And there's a funny one, which is female, where Joe is forced to go and dress up as a woman and give a really bad presentation. The Lost Boy is the first in a series of training the Jokers into fighting professional fighters, thinking they're doing something else. And this is where it starts off where he has to fight a wrestler dressed up as Peter Pan. And that's a really funny one where he gets beat up. One of the best and funniest punishments happens in the permanent punishment, which is the probably the most executed punishments and definitely is the best of the three-way ones. And this is where Joe forces Q to get the 38 lives alone has three cats tattoo. He forces Mur to get a tattoo of a skydiving ferret to represent him skydiving. And then Sal has to get the Jaden Smith tattoo because it's funny and the reaction that Sal has is such a great reaction. And then looking at the next two punishments, they are pretty decent, but then you get one that's pretty brutal for a cube where you just had to refuse a marriage proposal, and then as in front of an entire stadium, I felt really bad after that, even though we never met the person. And then there is bingo, or actually bingo. And this one is such a funny punishment where Sal nearly gets murdered by a bunch of old people in a bingo hall. And finally, one of the cruelest, most elaborate, and one of the most weirdly legal punishments is brother-in-laws, where Sal is forced to watch as Mur marries his sister, and that one is just such a ridiculous punishment, which made Sal really mad, and still has Mur as his sort of, brother-in-law, even though both did get divorced after, and, well, it was just, they only got married for a joke, and that is really funny. And nothing else is really here in the season to talk about, so we'll move on to season 4. And starting off, there is Welcome to Miami, which shows Q's bad luck on the road where he has to get his backpack back from an alligator. And there is the one where Sal gets stuck in an elevator. That's a really funny one where they purposely did it to mess with him. Then there is Murder's interview with Dana McCullough, who was his childhood crush, and that's a pretty funny one. And she also plays Miss Martian on Young Justice, which is fun. It's really funny to see how awkward it was. Looking at the next 21, we get to see Mur's film get partially screened. You can't fully watch it online where you get an entire warning from Mur about how bad it is, and he begs you to watch something else. I've watched it. It's really, 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 really bad. And yeah, it just probably we're gonna watch it once and to never watch it again. I definitely recommend watching it maybe once just to see how bad it is. And I think the next one, I think this is the one where Joe has to fight Mayumba. Yeah, this is it. And he has to fight Mayumba, who's a sumo wrestler in a diaper, and he gets the life beat out of him. And then there's a final where Q is in his Jeep, and with it, he has to, well, get everything on him, and he has to well, get driven around while he's eating a bunch of like foods that are super messy and will get everywhere. That's a really funny one. And see, looking at some of the ones, there's Kill the Centaur, where Mur has to go all the way from a few miles away to his parents' house wearing a centaur suit, where he gets hunted by the other guys. It's a really funny one. A great one mainly for the suit is Captain Fatbelly, although I think the punishment would have worked a lot more for either Mur or Sal, since Joe's a lot not as scared of heights as them. Looking at the next ones, there is looking through them. The next probably good one is where Mur gets feathered in the park, and they're smushed to the clown. That's a really funny one where he thinks he's ruining a child's birthday, but the kid's actually in on it. Oh, he's probably definitely well, he's definitely messing with the other kids. And then there's the 100th episode live punishment special, and this is I can think of the punishment for this one. Think this is one where they have to cross, I think, a tightrope, and that those just has to wear a costume. And with that one, I think it was Joe who had to dress as Captain Fat Belly. Which I mean, it's kind of a weak punishment since he was already doing it, and the costume doesn't change too much. But yeah, moving on to season 5. We have a funny one starting it right off where we have the race between Sal and Mur, and to see who would win. It's really funny because they thought they would both win a race if they weighed the same. Sal ended up winning. They got the scene on the helicopter, but then he had to jump out because of that was part of the punishment. That's a really funny one. And I could see that. One of the challenges we had Tiger Baby, which is such a dumb and stupid challenge, but it's still really funny. And yeah, they have to try and sell these like dumb products. They've done it with games and stuff. Yeah, that's always really funny to see. And then there is. I'm gonna click on some of these. See the good, the bad, and the punished. This is where Hugh has to act as a sheriff, and he gets a self-style punishment where he has to jump into a pile of manure. And then there's it's a funny one in terms of the dedication they put into it, where it's statute of limitations, and this is related to an episode from the previous season where they were doing a challenge where they do different things, and Sales thing was to steal a nose, and he stole it from a statue. And they got a letter from the city, and then they decided to go and overblow this and turn this into a full-on punishment for Sal, making him think he had the entire show shut down. And that was a really funny way to mess with him. And then moving on to the other ones, there's Brother of the Sisterhood, which is one where he basically had to act like he was a really horrible and sexist person. But still, it was pretty funny to mess with him like that. And especially since it's not real and he's being told to do it and he has to. Because obviously this stuff is not funny, but when he's just made to do it to be uncomfortable, since they know it will make him uncomfortable, it is funny, but if this was someone actually doing it, it would not be. And looking at one of the best punishments, it is whose phone is ringing, which has Sal having to have one of the most obnoxious ringtones ever, which I actually got because they do sell it, and it's really funny to have and for it to go off. Obviously, if it's the first time, I'm not going to have it be ringing dozens of times as a mental place, and it's disturbing everyone, but this is such a great punishment, and with how funny this ringtone is, I just had to set it as my default ringtone, with my default text tone being Obi-Wan Kenobi saying hello there. I have the best of both worlds, and with this just being such a great punishment, I just really love it. And then we have another one episode that truly shows just how good of friends they are, and even Q says that he probably would have quit the show if this punishment ever happened to him. Mur is forced to shave off all of the hair on his head, including his eyebrows, and that's just before he leaves for England. And yeah, that's a really crazy one. I think in this one he is forced to change his passport. His driver license is also changed, but I think it's his passport for this one. And now I'm going to be actually skipping ahead to the British one because all the hour-long episodes are pushed to the end of the season. Although it does happen after this one, since they do mention it here, and if the next episode that would happen, since his eyebrows are still shaven off, and they're mainly back in the next episodes. And in British Invasion, we have a pretty fun one where they go to, well, to Britain or England, and yeah, it's pretty funny where they get a revenge punishment. When that happened, I think earlier in the season, they didn't mention where, or I think it was in the previous season where, what's his name? I think it was Sal and Q had to be hockey goalies and had a bunch of hockey pucks thrown at them. Yeah, it's pretty funny. And now it's Joe and Mur who have to dodge a bunch of soccer balls and as they're getting pelted at them. Looking at some of the other ones, we have a fun one where Joe has to give away all of his clothes, and he doesn't even realize it at first, which is pretty funny. And then there's water torture where Sal is actually not going to be punished at first, but the kids keep messing up and they decide to turn it into a punishment since Sal has already lost the episode, which was really funny. And then there is Ash Clown, where we get to see perpet cremation, grandparent divorced Paul James S. Murray, of course. And the phone number that appears in there, I think, is still a real phone number that you could call and you'll get the full thing of the perpet cremation, which I just said. I'm not sure if they still do it, so just double check if it does happen. And then looking at the other ones, there is Spider-Man, where he was forced to be by tarantulas. There was a funny one, Stage Fright. And this is one where he has to give an embarrassing play in front of all of his firefighter friends. And then Training Day. I don't know if these took place back to back, but this is one where Q gets revenge on the Jokers, making them go through the Fire Academy. As get revenge on them, and then for what happened in the last one. And finally, there's the Live Nitro Circus Spectacular, and that one is really good because you get to see the Jokers go and do one of their charity challenges, and we see both Mur and Cell punished, with Cell being punished by the fans. And it's really funny because he gets thrown into a giant, I think it was a cake, which was really funny. Moving on, we have finished up season 5 and moving to season 6. It has some great punishments, but it starts off kind of weak with the episode Swim Shady, where Selch says kind of take some embarrassing pictures, and it feels kind of, anticlimactic. Personally, it's a punishment that I don't love, and yeah, it's not amazing. Then there is Lady and the Tramp, where Mur has to go and be taken, and he has to impersonate the Statue of Liberty, and it's really funny. There's the parent trap where Joe has to be a really bad parent, and that's really funny. Another great one is Vampire Weekend, where Mur has to be Dracula in Dracula play, but he actually thinks he's in a gospel choir, and that's hilarious. Because it's just how awkward it is. That's made such a great punishment. And then there is X-Man, which is a very brutal punishment for Q, and he has to go and write X's over a bunch of children's drawings. Yeah, that is just such a brutal one. And then looking at these, there isn't too many great ones. There is the next great one is in Universal Appeal, and that is when Q has to fight a Jujutsu master in a play at Universal Studios Orlando, I believe. And it's hilarious because, well, he's getting the life beat out of him by a person in a cow costume who's actually a Jujutsu master, as he's in a ridiculous spider costume. Next is the Hawaiian one, where Mur has to swim with sharks, and that one is really funny to see also. Miami Punishment's another great one, and I think this is one of the first punishments that fans learned about before the episode would have aired, since Q went to a giant Impractical Jokers party where one event, and he was handcuffed to the mime, and they showed it off as his punishment. 3 Men and Your Baby is one of the revenge punishments for the Parent Trap punishment. It's, it was designed for revenge, so it's just a fun one for that. Just seeing how two of the three-way punishments are revenge punishments. The Q-Pay is a hilarious one for what it does for the rest of the season. Homer has to get a driver's license with the wig made out of Q's hair and wear it for the rest of the season. And this is followed in the next episodes of the season, which is really funny. And we have another great one with Rubbed the Wrong Way, where Joe the Genie gets smashed into the sets. Flatfoot the Pirate is one that isn't too good. I see this is one of some people's least favorite ones. And another one I didn't like, there is Silence of the Lame, which is another one I don't love. But remember, the Pact is a phony one where Murr is forced to show off his phone to his father and a bunch of embarrassing stuff on it. The Walking Dread's another great Sal Haunted House punishment. Take Me Out at the Ball Game is one where I think where Joe has to steal baseballs. And I think it's an okay punishment. The Party Crasher is funny because this is where Murr has to fight. Well, to go and try to take out a master, and I don't remember what fighting style it was, but he gets slammed through a table, thrown in a pool, and a bunch of other stuff. A really funny one is Dover and Out. And this one, Q has to go and insult the entire town of Dover, New Jersey by saying he painted a giant mural that says Dover sucks. And that's a really funny one. And there's a great ending in G.I. Jokers, another hour long special. Actually 49 minutes since it's, not an hour with commercials and everything. But yeah, with it, we get some great stuff in it, including the Jeep of Q being blown up and Murr having to go in a fighter jet. Both punishments are great and were really enjoyable, and I really liked what they did with this. The rest of the season is just a bunch of compilations of different punishments, looking at the different Jokers and everything. And yeah, I'm not gonna really look at those since I've been avoiding them in each season. Moving into season 7, and honestly, we're at a pretty good time considering what I'm talking about. It's only 35 minutes, I thought it could be a lot longer. So I'm just gonna finish this up. And going into season 7, there are many great punishments within this. We have Marathon Man, which is just pretty funny because of how they're messing with Murr and have throwing water on him as he has to run in a ridiculous outfit across, I believe, the Brooklyn Bridge. And then looking at the other ones, we have Striptease where Murr has to go and be a male dancer, and he's put with a bunch of drugs. I completely forgot there's also the punishment a few seasons ago where he has to get a prostate exam on national television. And that's a really funny one. And then another great one where Joe has to figure out what the fake table is and jump on them. There is a kind of bad one with Lord of the Ring, or Lords of the Ring, where I believe it's Q and Cell have to sell a turquoise ring and are just kind of trapped in a hot room. And then there is No Child Left Behind. I don't really remember this one, but it does have Grandpa Whoopsie in it, which is another one of the fun, ridiculous products. Pulling the rug is a fun one where Murr has to go figure out who has a wig inside of a restaurant and actually goes over the person. And then I think this is its speech impediment is I'm pretty sure this is the one where Murr has to have either helium or I think hydrogen pumped into his mouth and he has to give him a normal speech, which is really funny. It's either that one or it's the one where he has to switch between random speeches. I don't think that's in the next season. And there's Card Against Humanity, where there's another punishment I love where Slouch has to keep taking his business card back and giving it to other people. And there's the Running of the Bullies, which is a funny one where Sales to impersonate a lifeguard, and then another fun one where Joe has to be a car washing person and wears a pretty funny outfit, being in a bikini. Q's punishment in To Hatch a Predator is also hilarious, where he nearly traumatizes some children with them thinking he killed a bunch of baby turtles. There's like a boss where do you go and be very disrespectful at a company presentation, and dropping knowledge in chick magnets where Sal has to go and catch a bunch of chickens while his father sits there disapprovingly insulting him as he's failing to do it. And dropping knowledge is a great one where Murr has his apartment ruined once again, where he fails in a bunch of trivia and loses his diploma, bed sheets, door handles, and his shower heads. And it was really funny. And Hump Day is a great one where Q's stuck in a pen with a camel named Pepe. And that's a really fun one. And then, yeah, there's not too many great ones after this. The rest of them are pretty good punishments, but not amazing. Including one where Murr has to have a bunch of emails sent from his account if he can't check someone on a roller derby, and where Sal has to go and try and pants. I think it was another wrestler, and it was a I think it was like it was a match from whatever the martial art they were doing. I don't remember which one, but I remember he just got beat up a bunch in that one. The last great one is Joker for a Day that I want to talk about. Although season did end with that episode, they have Joker for a Day, which is one where the crew gets to go and participate in challenges, trying to compete for a paid week off, and It's really fun, and just going into the next season, I'll talk about that one's Joker for a day also. It's another fun where you just get to see the guys just, having fun and messing with their crew so they could get a paid week off and they're all trying to, get it. And I think that's a really fun way to do it and a way to have a unique episode. Now, officially moving into season 8, there's some great ones with crash test dummies where Sal and Mar both get their stuff destroyed by monster trucks. They're really funny. Full Metal Jacket's pretty okay punishment where Joe comes out and has to model coats. Blue Man do pretty funny because he has to go and be that guy who was saying you're sitting in the seat and then get all of his clothes covered by the Blue Man group. And there is the Eggman, which is pretty funny as Joe looks through a meeting for eggs to eat. And Cake Lost, where Q has to go sabotage a bunch of people's cakes and learns he's participating in the cake contest, making him feel extremely bad, even worse than he did before. Then there is Off the Reservation, where I think it's I don't remember which it was whether they had to lose the reservations people. I'm pretty sure it was either Sal or Murr. And then looking through them, the next great one is Well, where they go and psychologically torture Sal, making him think he's having a bunch of punishments, but he's not, and that is the punishment to psychologically torture him. A pretty ridiculous one is You're in Trouble, where Sal has to get someone to pee on him, and then I get the rest of them. There's nothing, it's really amazing until the 200th episode special in Hollywood, where Murr has to be placed inside of a giant drum and has a bunch of stuff thrown into it as the drum is being banged onto, making things even worse. And then finally, there's a few other good punishments. There is Toll Booth Corrector, where Murr has to go and waste time at a toll booth and make people mad. And then there's a paternity test where Joe has to do a test with his actual daughter there. And finally, a ridiculous one is the season finale. It's Electric, where Murr has to do the electric side with a bunch of people that are naked. It's really ridiculous. Of course, it's censored because it's on TV. Finally, moving into season 9, I am only going to be talking about the stuff until Joe leaves. So the newest episode will not be reviewed. I'm going to be reviewing that when the rest of the season drops. But I'll be looking at the first half of season 9, where Joe is part of the season. And moving on to the start, we have a fun punishment in the bachelor party. And these punishments have to be a little more unique since they are done during the pandemic. So they had to be a little more unique and had to keep interactions away. So looking at it, this one has them throwing a bachelor party for Murr, who's about to be married. And it's pretty ridiculous how he's getting humiliated. And then we move to my favorite episode this season easily, which is Drive, 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 where Q is forced to drive for over 12 hours, delivering food to his friends, going out to some pretty far locations. There's also the same song being played by an animatronic band. And of all these, this is one of my favorite episodes in a while, and it was such a great one. I was definitely up there with one of my favorite punishments. And the next one is Bleach for America. It was really well done, where Murr is forced to become the spokesman for My Shiny Heiny, a product he used earlier in the show. And it's really funny because of just how humiliated he is, and it's on a giant billboard and everything, and the three other Jokers get to make money off of it. And then there's one where Sal has to go and destroy something that the guys were working on, and this felt like, kind of a weak punishment. Another one that was really advertised, I thought it was an okay punishment though, is the one where Murr's lawn is all turned pink. And then there's two ones that are just kind of, compilation ones. There's another fun one with Space Oddity, where Murr has to pretend like he's an astronaut as he's getting turned around, having to eat spaghetti, brush his teeth, and lift weights and do a bunch of other stuff, and then he gets stuck there. Really funny punishment. And then looking at the next one, there's OK Zoomer, where Joe goes and has to give a present or give a news broadcast at like 3 in the morning every day for Australia. And it's really funny because just how miserable he is. This is probably my favorite Joe punishment of his last season. Well, looking at some other stuff, we have Prince and Me, where Sal becomes Prince Herb for the rest of all the season's supposed to, but he really just becomes it for the next few episodes up to episode 19. Since when they return, they decided to get rid of the Prince Herb thing, which I think was pretty funny. Up next, there is one where Joe has to sing the song "The Wind Beneath My Wings," and that one's it's an okay punishment. I mean, these are ones having to be done in a pandemic, so they aren't as great as the other ones. And then we have a few good punishments, but nothing too great. And with them, some of the fun ones are when Murr has to figure out how to play a flute that Joe bought for him way earlier in the show. And with it, he is not able to do it, and he has to try to do it to calm a snake, which is really, I think that was probably one of the last great ones. A decent one is the next one where Murr has headphones on and he can't hear anything and give some ridiculous responses. One I really didn't like is the one in documentary now where Keo and Prince Herb, I'll be calling him that for the rest of this video since it is his punishment, and I'm still going to do it. And looking at it, we just have Keo and Herb just kind of insulting an audience and doing a bunch of ridiculous stuff. And I feel like I just more of like a extreme challenge. And then with the rest of them, Joe has his final punishment, which is a pretty good one, where he has to give a presentation on the woman's body in a pretty ridiculous suit. And I think that is a pretty good one to have on him, having a really weird punishment. Although I kind of do wish that it was the Australian one, which I think is probably his best punishment of the season. Yeah, looking back at them, the only other one I missed is one where to kind of awkwardly tell people that what his dog did to their dog, and that wasn't a great punishment either. So yeah, that's definitely the best one of the season, although it's still not truly amazing. But the final one has a pretty funny punishment where Q goes and thinks that he's having a punishment and is doing an awkward radio show, but truly learns it's supposed to stall for time as all of the clothes he owned were donated. And it's a funny punishment that really feels truly impractical jokers. Although season 9, I think, does suffer a little. I think it does get a little better with punishments and, well, after Joe did leave. But yeah, most of the punishments this season weren't amazing because of social distancing and everything. Besides Drive, 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 which is one of my favorite punishments ever because it's just so fun and unique and crazy. But yeah, this is my about 15-minute review of Impractical Jokers. I truly love this show, and I've only really given away the punishments. So if you want to go check it out and see this crazy stuff and more, with all these crazy challenges that lead up to them, I definitely recommend go watching it. And we'll see if I could get my other long video that I'm planning for this week, because it's going to take a little bit to just toss clips over because I'm not going to be editing this. And also, my other video planned is ranking all the levels in the Skywalker saga to the other ones. And I might only be doing part of that, but I'm just glad I was able to get all this done, even though it's pretty long. I also finished this on Sunday, so this will be out on Wednesday, but yeah, I'm just getting ahead because I think school's gonna start getting crazy this week as it's getting close to finals. But yeah, I do hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next episode of Legends and Theories. Thank you for watching this episode of Legends and Theories. Please subscribe, like the video, share the video, leave a comment, check out the video on screen, and may the Force be with you.